The coastal steamer Kong Herald is named in Stralsund, Germany in June 1993. A ship of 11,000 gross tons. Kong Herald and its sister ships Noorderlies and Richard Witt introduce a new era in coastal steamer traffic. They're among the world's most modern ships for passengers and goods, more luxurious and comfortable than any other coastal steamer. For many years to come, these ships will ply the route between Bergen and Kirkenes, a distance of more than 1,000 nautical miles. 35 cities and villages will be called at in both directions. This is the lifeline that holds the coastline and the country together. MS Polarlys, built in Aalborg, Denmark in 1952, has served as a coastal steamer for over 40 years. The ships Polarlys, Nordstjernen and Finnmarken will be replaced by the new generation of coastal steamers. The 2nd of July 1993 was a special day for Polarlys and the coastline, when the ship embarked on its final voyage from Kirkenes. It was 100 years since the coastal steamer service was introduced, linking the coastal towns and villages more closely together. The coastal steamer service is an important part of the history of our coast. Perhaps even the most important. But the traffic along the coast of northern Norway started much earlier than 100 years ago. The first regular service was established in 1838 with the paddle steamer Prince Gustav. The ship had regular sailings between Trondheim and Tromsø all summer. Several ships followed and the route was expanded. From Bergen in the south to Vadsø in the north, steamers ran regular services with passengers, mail and cargo. The regular traffic was a significant step forward for people along the coast. It was finally possible to travel without depending on the kindness of skippers of freighters and cargo ships. The initiator of the first regular service was the Norwegian state. From the 1850s, private companies followed suit. People realized that it was possible to maintain the traffic on the long, rough coast. With more sailings, the need for tonnage and ports of call increased. The waters in the north, however, were treacherous, especially during the polar night. None of the owners wanted to sail during the winter in a part of the country that is dark 24 hours a day and where storms may last for days on end. August Krigsman Gran, the state's steamliner consultant, was a man of vision. In 1891, he launched the idea of an express service between Trondheim and Hammerfest that was to synchronize with trains from Oslo and have 2 weekly sailings. The steamliner consultant invited the 2 big companies involved in the traffic along the coast, Der Nordenfjelske Dampskibsselskap and Der Bergenske Dampskibsselskap, to tender for the sailings. The 2 companies rejected the offer, feeling that it would not be possible to maintain the service during the winter because of the darkness, rough weather, inadequate maps, and the poorly developed lighthouse service. At this time, only 2 hydrographic charts existed north of Trondheim, and there were only 28 lighthouses and lights in Nordland and Troms. No, the ship owners did not want to embark on any voyage to the north of Norway in the wintertime. That was too risky, even with modern steamships. The newly established Vesterålens Dampskibsselskap in Stokmarknes, however, took up the challenge. Captain Richard Witt told the state he would take on the job. He asked 70,000 Norwegian kroner in subsidies for a weekly express service all year round. There were plenty of skeptics who believed that Witt could never manage to do the job. He, however, referred to the exact notes on course, speed and time which he and his pilots had taken along the entire route between Trondheim and Hammerfest and said that he would succeed. The Norwegian Parliament said yes. On the 18th of May 1893, Vesterålens Dampskibsselskab was given a 4-year contract to cover the route from Trondheim to Hammerfest during the summer months and Trondheim to Tromsø in the winter, calling at 9 ports. On the morning of the 2nd of July, the coastal steamer Vesterålen left Trondheim for the first time. 67 hours later, on the 5th of July at 03:30 a.m., the ship anchored in the harbour of Hammerfest, 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Vesterålen and Hurtigruten heralded the introduction of the most important breakthrough in the communications sector in northern Norway. A permanent year-round ship connection was of great importance to the development of that part of the country. With the exception of a few short intervals, Vesterålen serviced the coast until 1941, when the ship was torpedoed and sank. Coastal steamer traffic experienced a steady growth and constantly expanded. From 1898, the ships departed from Bergen. In 1907, Vaart was included, and in 1914, Kirkenes. For some time, there were weekly sailings from Stavanger. From 1936, a daily coastal steamer connection was set up from Bergen northwards. And this is the way it has been since, interrupted, though, by World War II. Hurtigruten and Vesterålens Dampskibsselskab showed the way, and several followed. The ships gradually became bigger and better. And best of all, people could trust the coastal steamer. It arrived at fixed times and departed at fixed times. When the coastal steamer came into being, it was primarily intended to carry passengers and mail. While it could take 3 weeks in the summertime and 5 months in the winter for a letter to get from Trondheim to Hammerfest, it took only a few days by the coastal steamer. The service represented a revolution in communications in Norway. The coastal population became a travelling people. Getting from one part of the country to another was no longer a problem. Nor was transportation of fresh food a problem anymore. If everything else failed, the coastal steamer was there. In some places, quays could be in short supply. Then the dispatch boat was used to get people and cargo on board the ship. The fishing industry in northern Norway developed rapidly in this century, largely because of the coastal steamer. The new means of transportation opened up new possibilities for the fisheries. It meant fast transportation to southern Norway and to ports of shipment for exports. In return, northern Norway got money, which was the basis for the development of several other industries. This would not have been possible without a regular and reliable ship service. The coastal steamer opened up fields for new businesses and new opportunities, with positive effects on both rural and urban life. From the inaugural voyage of the steamer Vesterålen in 1893, tourism was considered an attraction on this long and exciting coastline. With mountains, fjords and islands, dramatic changes in scenery and the atmosphere on board, the coastal steamer offered something special. And the tourists came, every summer and on every ship. They came to see and feel the country. Although the original intention never was to engage exclusively in cruise traffic, the coastal steamer became one of Europe's biggest attractions with its high standards, good food and excellent service on board. There is nothing in Europe like the Norwegian coast. No coastline is as wild and beautiful. No summer as unforgettable as the one in the north. The mystic and picturesque scenery is imprinted on your mind. You will never forget your voyage along the coast. The coastal steamer brought organized tourism to northern Norway and made Norway famous as the land of the midnight sun. It is not without reason that the service was called the most beautiful voyage in the world. Close to 70 ships have been used in the coastal steamer service during its 100 years of existence. In the early years, the ships had formerly been engaged in other traffic in Norway and abroad. Gradually, however, ships were built especially for this purpose. They all had their distinctive stamp, and people along the coast had their favorites. You'd always find a ship which you thought was more beautiful, finer, or better than all the others. Nevertheless, most agreed that all the ships were great. They were ships to travel by, the way journeys should really be made. The only thing that has not changed is the names of the ships. Nordenfjelske named its ships after earls and kings. Bergenske, later Troms Fylkes Dampskibsselskap, used names from the stars like Nordenstjernen, Polarlys and Midnattssol. Vesterålens og Ofotens Dampskibsselskap chose North Norwegian names like Lofoten, Finnmarken and Vesterålen. All were ships with which people on the coast had a special relationship. World War II led to big losses for the fleet of coastal steamers. Almost half the tonnage was sunk. Because of mines and the risk of attacks, the service had to be reduced. In the far north, replacement ships had to be used. Smaller freighters and fishing boats had to do the job of maintaining communications between the north and the south. But the coastal steamer was there, although the comfort and safety were not the same as in peacetime. When peace was restored, the fleet had to be rebuilt. Everybody agreed that regular services had to be resumed as soon as possible. The ship owners and the Norwegian state agreed to build a new class of ships, 8 ships that were to be as identical as possible and offer an even better service on the coast. The first 4 contracts went to an Italian shipyard, and the ships were called the Italy ships. The first, Arlingjal, was delivered in 1949. The others followed. The Italy ships were considered an important part of the reconstruction of Norway, and the building of the ships was given top priority by the government. Because of the difficult currency situation, part payment for the ships was made in Norwegian dried cod. Once more, the coastal steamer became the connecting link between the north and the south. Cargo and mail were to be transported northward and southwards. Food and construction materials one way, materials and parcels the other. To an even greater extent than before, the coastal steamer became the best way to get to know Norway. Prime Minister Einar Gerhardsen demonstrated this when he invited the entire diplomatic service for a voyage on a coastal steamer so that they would get to know Norway better. Gradually, tourists have discovered that the coastal steamer can also be used in the winter. During this season, one perhaps gets an even better insight into real coastal life. Life on board is also very attractive. The food and service equal that of the best hotels, and no one can come up with a more magnificent view. In the 1980s, a new generation of ships was put into service. First came Midnattssol, then Vesterålen and Narvik. The three ships met the by now even stricter requirements for the transportation of goods and passengers. Loading and unloading through hatches on the foredeck was abandoned. Instead, goods are handled through cargo ports. The ships also have closed-in car decks which can take 40 to 50 cars. The new ships also implied considerable changes for the passengers. The division into classes disappeared. Now everyone was offered the same treatment, but the food and good atmosphere remained unchanged. In 1988, the ships were modernized and given a large enclosed panorama deck and a new module on their quarterdecks to accommodate even more passengers. Our latest generation of ships continues this development into the next century. The most important aspect, however, will be taken good care of, and that is that people enjoy themselves and are treated well on board. Kong Harald, Nord Lys and Richard Witt will service the route between Bergen and Kirkenes for many years to come. Every day, all year round, they will sail a wild and beautiful coast, the way it all started 100 years ago. The then small ship owners, Vesterålens Dampskibsselskap, started it all. It was the pioneer, showing the entire country that it was possible to sail between the southern and northernmost parts of Norway all year round. The following year, the two big shipping companies that were engaged in coastal traffic, Der Bergenske Dampskibsselskap and Der Nordenfjelske Dampskibsselskap, were licensed to operate a coastal express service. In 1919, Der Stavangerske Dampskibsselskap followed suit. And in 1936, Ofotens Dampskibsselskap in Narvik, which was merged with Vesteralske in 1987. The coastal steamer will continue its voyage of success. Competition and cooperation with other means of transportation, like aeroplanes and fast boats, have added to the significance of the coastal steamer as a passenger ship for the local population. Its position and importance as a cargo transporter will most likely be strengthened. Also, an increasing number of tourists are discovering the coastal steamer and the Norwegian coast. To the tourist industry in Norway, the coastal steamer is the #1 target, both in the summer and in the winter, and it is regarded as one of Norway's biggest tourist attractions. There is no better or more beautiful way in which to become familiar with the country. That, nothing can change.